begin.
Mijn naam is genoeg. Mijn naam is genoeg.
Okay, this shiur is really is a series of 6 shiurim which I will give, and then I go back to the United States till the summer. I'm here summer and winter, and the purpose of the shiur basically is really to develop a skill in thinking. Really how to think precisely, accurately, and so on. So I'm going to be taking the Mishna Succah, and we're going to be looking at it and trying to, really figure out what is it saying, and how to really analyze it and so on. And just as a very short intro, come in. Thinking consists of 2 operations, which I mentioned, which is a review. When the mind thinks, it does 2 things. It wants to know what something is, if you recall, and to what is it related to be connected to. And that's it. When it wants to know what a thing is, it analyzes it. And what it seeks to do is to find out, break down something. So the first thing it tries to do is come away with a definition. What is a definition? And a definition is a description, is a statement that describes the true nature of something. It wants to know what something is. And then it breaks it down into what it's called its attributes, or its hafchonis. And based on that, it then tries to achieve an understanding. And there are many hafchonis of something, depending on what the thing is, There are many attributes or characteristics of a thing, depending on what it is. Is it an action? Is it an activity? Is it an object? And so on. The second thing the mind does, it seeks to connect this to other ideas. And that's called synthesis. And now, true clarity comes from both. In fact, in a certain sense, many times, if you analyze something, you don't really get it until you see what it is in relationship to other things. And then all of a sudden, what it really is emerges because you've now connected it to other ideas. So synthesis is not just putting something together. Get a chair. Get a chair back here. So synthesis.
Thank you very much indeed. This is more people from
Synthesis is not merely a way of looking at something, how it relates to everything else, but it's also a form of analysis. Because by seeing how something connects with other things, you can actually understand what the thing is. I mean, classic example, let's say the heart. You could look at the heart and you can analyze the heart, and you notice that it circulates blood. But then when you understand that, well, it seems to be part of a system, you have vessels, right? You begin to realize that it's part of a system itself. So you realize that what a heart isn't just an organ, it's a pump. And it furnishes or supplies blood throughout the body and so on. Essentially what I'm saying is that to connect things to other things in many ways is a form of analysis. It will actually tell you what something is. It's not a luxury. And people make a tremendous mistake. If they start to look at something, they analyze it, and that's all they do. They don't connect it to anything else. That's assuming they know how to analyze, which is a big assumption. But let's assume that they do. They don't connect it, and that's a tremendous mistake. So, what you really want to do in anything, including learning Torah. Hello? Yeah, hi, who's this? Hi, yeah, I'm starting a shir now. Oh, that's okay. So, if you want, you go Thursday night, 8 till 10. Yeah, my house. Yeah, and it's Mishna Sukkah, okay? Great, okay, I'll see you then. Bye. Yeah, so therefore, this concept of analyzing and synthesizing. Hello? Yeah, bye.
Yes.
I can't buy.
It's delayed.
It's got more beats.
In any case, so that is a skill that you really have to develop. How to analyze and how to synthesize. Now, obviously, you don't have to do it all throughout life. So what? But certainly, when you want to learn Torah, or if you're educated on or doing something else, it's a great skill to have, to be able to look at something analytically, and then to be able to connect the dots, and so on. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Imagine if I give you a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and I say, okay, what's the first thing you're going to ask me? If I give you a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, I say, put it together. What's the first thing you're going to ask me? Where's the box? Well, where's the box? Because I need to look at the picture. Why do you want to look at the picture? Why not just take a look at each piece and try to put it together based on the pieces? No, it won't work that way. In other words, what you're really trying to do is synthesize all the pieces, all the fragments, And therefore, it's a very important idea. The whole concept of thinking has two operations. Okay. So that's a very important idea. So what I want to do here is take Mishnah Sukkah and go through that process, and try to see, well, can we put it together, and so on. There's a lot more I could say, but I've said it before, so. Anyway, okay. What is Mishnayos? What is Mishnayos? Give me a description or definition of Mishnayos. What is it really?
Collection of halakha.
Yeah, good. It's a text which contains a collection of halachas and it's divided into paragraphs. Or it's a paragraph that contains a text of halachas, yeah.
So it's Shulchan Aruch.
Shulchan Aruch also.
You're not defining the Mishnah's uniqueness of Mishnah.
That's very true. So what's the difference between a Mishnayos and a Shulchan Aruch? Sure you know. Of course you know.
The
What's the difference between Mishnayos?
The time predated.
Well, yeah, but it's halacha l'maisa. Shulchan Aruch is the actual halachas which we do in practice, which Mishnayos is the halachas or the database of Torah Shabbat Peh. And we may or may not do that halacha. You see, that's obviously a critical difference between the two. But clearly, what's more fundamental is the Mishnah, is the Mishnayos, as opposed to the Shulchan Aruch. Because what the Shulchan Aruch will do is we'll pick out from the Mishnayos those halachas which are practical, which we in fact do. So that's a good question. And so on, In any case, see, when you asked that question, what were you really asking?
Uniqueness.
It's differentiation. How do you differentiate A from B when they look similar? Yeah, so that's a label to your thought process. Yeah.
So
Yaakov.
that's right, Yaakov. But the Mishnayos outlines the principles of the halakha and draws, it is an outline. That means that when you join it all together, you have the structure, and within that structure is halakha l'maaseh.
I wish I could agree with you. Why? What's the problem?
I would say, the reason I justify it is that every Mishnah comes to teach you something new
That's true.
that you can't learn from another Mishnah.
I don't know.
Usually, I mean, one of the first questions the Gemara usually asks is, haven't we learned this elsewhere?
Yeah.
What's special about this?
Yeah.
And so that when you put the whole structure together, you're getting an outline of the fundamentals of the practice of halacha. An outline. Not a systematic presentation, an outline.
Hopefully. Now, well, you'll see why I'm skeptical. You know. Okay. So a Mishnah is a paragraph that contains a text, yes, that has a collection of halachas. Period. What is a halacha? Because you need to, what I want to do, break down, is before you can begin to analyze something, what do you need to know? And people also make a mistake. Many people just jump into Mishnah, Gemara, whatever, right? But is that really what you should do? No. What you really want to do, A, is analyze the structure of the text you're about to do, which we've just done. A Mishnah is a paragraph that contains a text, right, of a collection of halachas. So what I've just done is analyze the structure of the text. Great. Okay? The next thing you want to do is you don't want to just jump into the Mishnah. It's a mistake. What do you have to do?
Break down what the Mishnah is composing of.
Well, we know it's composed of halachas, right? So what do we next have to do? Remember, you're now approaching Mishnah.
We want to do the following to each halacha, stated in the Mishnah.
Yeah, what we really want to do is define halacha. What do we really want to do? We don't just want to jump. Look, you're an educator, yes? You don't get up on the wall and begin to slap down words, right? You know what you want to do. Am I right? I think. You have what's called a lesson plan. Yes? Maybe.
Goals, right?
Yeah, maybe they don't pay enough for a lesson plan. Who knows? You know, it's not even worth it. But what is a lesson plan? Why does a guy have a lesson plan before he's about to teach a group? Why? What's a lesson plan do for him?
It helps him not to go off tangent.
Gives a structure.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. It helps him not to go off tangent.
That's the Mishnah.
Maybe tell me what it helps him do. Not what not to do.
Not like
It's
the
like,
Mishnah.
no.
Helps him be specific.
Gives you,
What?
gives you an outline, gives you goals, gives you a time frame.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, it gives you what?
A
It
roadmap.
gives you specific goals that you want to achieve. And the time frame, if it's a lesson plan, we done one lesson, right? But a lesson plan specifically is what? Is a goal-oriented, work or whatever, right? And so that's what it is. Why do you want a lesson plan? Pray tell, why do you want a lesson plan? Okay, it gives me goals. What do I need goals for?
It tells you what to do.
Well, yeah, it tells you what to do. Because without goals, you're going to flounder around. It's what's called hit and miss. You know, you're going to say something, maybe say something else. It's all hit and miss. You know, but the educational process doesn't want a hit and miss business. It wants to teach specific ideas, right, in each lesson. For that, you have a goal. So therefore, a lesson plan is a goal-oriented plan, right? Say, okay, I often use this example. Imagine you're getting on a plane because you want to go to Bulgaria, okay? Or wherever you want to go, and you walk past the cockpit, which is on your left, yes? And you take a look inside and you can't believe the amount of buttons all over the place. It's like every available space has a dial, a button, whatever, a switch, a toggle, whatever, right? And all of a sudden you hear the pilot saying to the co-pilot, what do you think we should check today? What would you do? You get off the plane. You're not going to make it. Right? Yeah, exactly. It's mine. What do you check today, you know? How about checking the cockpit, the plane? But anyway.
Everyone else scream.
So the question is, why would you get off the plane? Why would you do that? Because he may miss one of the buttons that may be critical to get you to the destination you want to go. Right? So then the question then is, well, how does he overcome the chaos or the hit and miss approach that is very likely to arise? How does he approach? What does he do?
As a checklist.
As a checklist. That's the critical concept. What is a checklist? A checklist is a lesson plan. It's a goal-oriented statement. What do I do? Right? That's what a checklist is. So therefore, it's astounding how many people make that mistake. They will sit down and learn a Gemara, or a Mishna, or a Halacha, Succah, I don't care what they learn, without understanding what do I have to know in this text that constitutes knowing. It's an interesting statement. Let me say that statement again, because it's really very important. What do I have to know in this Mishnah, or let's say Mishnah, right, that constitutes knowing it? So therefore, you want to write out your objectives of knowledge in the form of a checklist. Then what you can do, that's an incredible device. A checklist on our Mishnah is an incredible device. Why? First of all, because your thinking is not up to chance. It's there. You actually know what you want to do. And therefore you will get the information that you seek. Whereas if you don't do that, there's a lot of information that you may not get because you don't even think about it, because you're not even aware that that's what you need to know the Mishnah. The second beautiful thing about that is it will alert you what to look for. You see, if I have a checklist, that means I have to look for whatever that goal or item says. And therefore, if you look around and you see it's missing, you know it's missing because you're looking for it. You're not in the position of tell me something. You're in the position of seeking and searching what you want. You know what you want to know. That's critical. And the third beautiful thing about that is what? Is when you look at a Pirish, you know exactly what he's telling you. What piece of information is he telling you? Right? Because you've got your checklist, you see. So you know what you have to know. You know if it's not available or what's not being said. But you can actually evaluate a commentary. You can say, well, what he's telling me is what? He's not telling me what the halacha is. He's telling me the derivation of the halacha. You can label, identify exactly what a commentary is saying. You see what I'm saying? And another thing, a fourth thing, is you can see what he's not saying. You can actually evaluate the Pirish. What information is he giving me, or what is he not giving me? So I have to look elsewhere. Those are all kinds of four critical ideas that a checklist will prevent. Very important. So what we need to do, obviously, is develop what? Is to develop a checklist on the Mishnah itself. Yes? Okay. So if we know a Mishnah is comprised of what? It's comprised of units called halachas. Right? And the Mishnah is a collection of these halachas. Yes? So we need to develop a checklist for a concept called halacha. And then we need to develop a checklist for the concept called paragraph or Mishnah. And once we've done that, wow, what a difference. So, what's the checklist for the concept called halacha? What's the first thing we want to do? We need to define the word halacha, or the concept, And of course I've done that before. What is the definition of the word or the concept called halacha?
Behavior that's expected in a particular situation.
It is a behavior that's expected in a particular situation. Fine. I wouldn't use the word expected, I would use the word required. Expected sounds like it's up to you. Or it's expected by society. Who cares? Allah is not interested in what people think, they're interested in what God thinks. That's why it's required as opposed to being expected. Anyway, the definition of a halacha is what? The required behavior in a given situation. You see? That's a very important definition. It is astounding how most people cannot define the word halacha. If you don't believe me, try it out with somebody else. Ask them, tell me what a halacha is. And they'll tell you all kinds of things. Well, it's found in the Shulchan Aruch. That's not a definition. Then they'll tell you what? It's what you have to do. No, it's only half. Or it's a law. A law is a translation. It's not a definition. All kinds of things people present. You see, it's very hard because most people don't think in a precise way. So the halacha therefore has how many components to this definition? The required behavior in a given situation has how many components? Two. First one is called
Behavior.
the required behavior. And the second one is called,
Situation.
therefore, okay, my term for that, it has a case, which is the situation, or the circumstance, and the required behavior, required behavior is called the conduct, the behavior, or the law, or the din, the rule, I don't care what you call it, but basically it says it's the conduct. So you have case and conduct.
What about svara?
Svara?
Isn't that in there?
A
sometimes?
svara means a thought.
No, I mean reason.
Wait, I didn't get to that yet. I'm working my way down.
I was with.
Yeah, well, you're working your way up. So you have a case and a conduct, right? Fine. So we now know there are two fundamental items you need to know. You know, many times you know in the Mishna, halacha, you're not clear what the case is. What is this case? You know, it's amazing. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what exactly is the case. If you don't know what the case is and you know what the conduct is, you got problems. You see? Now, how many conducts are there? How many possible dinim or rules?
10.
Yeah, 10. You know what the 10 are, right? What are the 10? There are 10 basic statements of conduct. What to do. What are they? Remember what they are? Asa mutter, forbidden, permitted. Kosher pasul, fit or unfit. Chayav pater, obligated or exempt. Torah tomei, right? Clean, pure, whatever. Or tomei or contaminated, whatever. And yotza lo yotza. Did he fulfill the obligation or not? That's it. There's only 10 dinim. That fits a million different times. You know? Maybe there's some, I don't know if I discovered all of them, but that's basically 98% of all the halachas, of all the conducts and so on. Okay, great. So what do we have? We have case, right? We have conduct. And we have basically 10 of them. What's next? We have the conduct. The concept called a principle. A principle, the definition of the word principle is what? Anybody know what a principle is?
The reason of the conduct.
Well, that's what we want to apply. What's the definition of a principle? Anybody know?
The underlying
Function.
reason.
Yeah. Well, it's an underlying idea.
No, it's the subtext.
It would be a
That's
subtext,
the-
yes. But a principle is nothing more than an underlying idea. You know. And by the way, a principle can have a principle. You can have an underlying idea that itself has an underlying idea. There's another underlying idea. You know, which level are we at, and so on. But it simply means an underlying idea. So in the case of a halacha, what is the underlying idea that we want to have? You know what I'm saying? What is that idea that we want to know? And the answer is the reason, the rationale, the tam. You see. In other words, what tam for what? The rationale for what? Why is this the law or the din to this case? Why? That's the concept that we want to know. That is the principle of the halacha. In other words, what is the concept or the principle that governs this din to this case?
Could you give any example
Well, I want, for instance, if you take, there's a halacha in Shabbos called shihiyah. Means you cannot take a pot with food and put it near Shabbos, before Shabbos, but close, on the stove, uncooked. Why? Why not? It's not Shabbos. I'm not a cook on Friday, right? So why can't I put it on? And the answer is because the Chazal were afraid that if we allow you to put uncooked food close to Shabbos, and it will enter Shabbos uncooked, right? We're afraid you're going to come home after. Well, let's really spell out the whole situation. I mean, you know, he's going to come home, and of course, when he comes home, everybody's waiting for kiddush, and the wife is looking at him, you know, and the kids are looking at him and saying, "No," you know, right? And he goes over to the pot, and they check it out, and they say, hey, this is not cooked. This is an unmitigated disaster. You know what I'm saying? So what's he going to do? So in his panic, he's going to bend down and stoke the coals, thereby violating two malachas. One is havora, because when you stoke the coals, you increase the heat, and that's called havora, right? And the second thing is called cooking. Since you increase the heat, bishul. So therefore, Chazal were afraid that in your panic or your rush to eat something Friday night, you're going to stoke the coals, violating two malachas. So the concept of Shem Yechateh, lest he stoke or stir up the coals, is the principle of why you cannot put a pot with uncooked food close to Shabbos on the stove. That's a clear expression of a principle.
I think it would be more, for example, sorry, Kedushin, yeah? Ishonichnas b'Shem Rochim, Kessin. What would be the underlying principle of Kessin?
Say that again?
Ishonichnas b'Shem Rochim, Kessin. Kessin is one though.
Money.
Yeah, money. So
Yes.
what would be an underlying principle?
Well, when you say underlying principle, what are you saying? What your underlying principle for what?
I don't know.
No, you do know. You don't know what the principle is, but you know what it's applied. What are you applying the principle for? It says in the Mishna, right? Isha nifnes, a woman can be acquired, which means married,
One act of kinyan.
with an act of a kinyan called money, right? So what principle are we looking for? It seems to be pretty straightforward.
How to acquire a woman?
No?
No?
No, that's the halacha.
No.
That's the case is a woman says, please marry me, or you say to the woman, I want to marry you, right? That's the case, right? The question is, how are we going to do it?
Right.
So the law is that you have to perform a certain act. You know what I'm saying? Fine, okay. So, but what's the principle we're looking for?
How to get married.
No,
What money is capable of doing?
no. It says how to get married. That's the halacha. The halacha is how do you marry a woman? So it can't be the principle. It says that's the halacha.
It's the nature of money. What money can do, can cause to happen. What it, you know.
Well, we see what it can cause.
Well, that's
It
the
allows you to
principle.
marry a woman.
How to make it
I mean, it's not philosophy. What's the nature of money?
No, I mean
You know,
it's
what
how
you're
it
doing is
applies.
how who?
How money applies to this situation.
Well,
That's
it
the
does.
principle.
It's used as a device to create the marriage state. So
The
that's what
principle is what's necessary for a kinyan.
That's the
it's
question.
to a kinyan. Well, it's not going into kinyan. What's the principle of this halacha?
It gives you exclusive rights over a chayes.
No, that's the consequence. That is the consequence of being married. By the way, we know it doesn't give you any exclusive rights at all. Let's get away from that delusion. But anyway,
So was everything else that you're doing this
what's the principle I'm looking
In
for?
other words, on this particular prat, how does Kesef fit into? We're asking on that.
What?
So
Give me the principle.
that Kesef is one of the
Ways of acquiring
ways
a
of
woman,
acquiring
getting
a
married,
woman
yeah.
for-
But what's the principle that I'm looking for?
It helps to satisfy a commandment.
No, that's a
The
derivation.
Kenyan.
That's where the source of Hamanatikahish Isha, that's how I know I'm allowed to use money. The derivation of this law. But what is the principle I'm looking for? Subtle, isn't it? Not easy.
Could it mean that an object is acquired by a means other than picking it up?
Well, that's the halacha, that you can do it with kesef instead of hakbor.
Yeah.
But that's still the halacha. You're just telling me what the halacha applies. In other words, the halacha says you do it with money. The implication of that is that you don't need to pick it
I was
up.
wrong. The principle is
Yeah.
that an act has to be done in order to bring a chayfetz, whatever it is, into your possession.
Well, that's certainly implied.
Uh-huh.
That's certainly implied in the halacha that an act has to be done to create the legal state called marriage. That's true. But what is the principle of this halacha? It sounds simple, that it should be simple, but it's not.
That there's no marriage without the...
That's not a principle. That's a view. That's an implication. Well, there is, you know what I'm saying? That's an implication from that law. What is the principle?
Could you say that legal relations or legal status has to be created? It's not there.
These are all implications. That's why you need this act as a kingdom to create the legal status. It's called that marriage, and therefore that has legal consequences. But what is the principle of this particular law? Yeah, you want to give it one more shot, and then I'll. Go ahead.
That kesef can be used as one of the devices to make a king of issues.
That's the law. That's not a principle. That's what it says. Or isha niknes b'shorish drachim.
But we want to know but we want to know right now specifically about kesef. That's what we're asking.
Maybe that
What do you want to know about kesef? What do you want? A principle is an underlying idea that explains something. What do we want to
Objects of
explain?
value must be exchanged.
What?
Objects of value must be exchanged.
That's what it says.
In order to acquire. And
Form it in terms of a question.
form it into what objects of value?
No. That's another detail. That's another law. No.
What about
Another halacha is.
What is the methodology used to acquire?
But kesef. Money says. What is an underlying idea of this first
that a
halacha?
woman can be acquired?
Is that a principle?
It's the underlying idea because there's no hope if you can't acquire it.
You know, what you're saying is true, but these are all implications in a certain way.
Implications, okay.
You know, obviously, if there's a law that I can acquire a woman with money, obviously it means I can acquire a woman. I mean, these are implied, whether directly or indirectly, in the law. But a principle seeks to answer or provide what? What is the key concept in a principle? It provides an explanation for something. What do we seek to explain in this law? Right? The key word is an explanation.
Why only these three things and nothing else? Or I would use.
Okay, why? You see, right? What you would ask is, how does money do it? How does money affect the transfer of her ownership, if you want to use that word, to you? How? Fine, so we know. Okay, here's a case. Here's a diamond ring. Yeah, okay. The woman says, "Okay, I'm all yours." Let the buyer beware. But anyway, and all of a sudden, right? But how? How does it do it? You mean I give her money and she gives me herself? What's that supposed to mean? What's the oifen? What is the mechanism? How does it work? You see, that's the principle that we would seek in this halacha. Again, the key concept and principle is the explanation for something. You see?
It doesn't explain, the halakha doesn't explain it, it says it does.
No, I'm not saying, if you have to find a principle, and that principle will explain why does money work.
It doesn't say why it's working.
No, it doesn't, exactly. And that's why I wanted to tell you, most 90% of all the cases in the Mishna, the halachas, have no principle. Rabbi did not put principles. Very rarely will he say zeh klal. He will only, by and large, only have case and conduct, and arguments about the conduct. You know, the man says this and the Yudah says that. But Rabbi did not put principles in the Mishnahs. Period. We can ask why.
Except in rare occasions.
Which is exactly.
For example, in Succah, if the rain comes down, he gives a reason that you go back in, and he gives a reason why.
If the rain comes down,
yeah,
he says you can walk out.
You go out, and he says Lamar Dovadama.
Yeah.
But then he gives a reason, but it's unusual.
Yeah, but that's not really the reason. Why is it if it rains in your sukkah, you walk out? There's a halacha, right? If it rains in your sukkah, and it's in your meal and all that, right? You can walk out. It's called mitzvah. Why?
It's not came to do.
It's what?
It's not came to do.
There you are. What does came to do mean?
It has to be living.
It has to be habitable. In other words, I can live in my house. I want to live in my sukkah. And not only that, but the way I live in my house has to be replicated or duplicated in a sukkah. If it's raining in my thing, It's not habitable, therefore I can leave. So habitability is the principle of that halacha. Now, what does the Mishnah tell us? Why did God make it uninhabitable? That's what that Mishnah tells us. But that's a second level principle.
So
So you jump straight to the second level without seeing the first.
The primary level is based on Succah's Teshvu.
Yeah.
Teshvu
Well, that,
Keduru.
no, that's the derivation of the principle.
so
It is not the principle. The principle is called habitability, which replicates living in a house. Well, how do we know habitability is unique? Derivation. The Sukkah's Teshvu. You see?
So you're saying then that the
You see how everything fits in a different slot, and it's easy to combine slots, and it looks mushy.
So he's saying that by Kesef and Kedushin, its principle is acquirability.
Well, how does money work? How does money affect the transfer
It
of
has a
ownership?
power to acquire.
No, that's a statement, but how? How does that do that in a certain sense, you know?
Transfer. She transfers herself, and you give her the...
Well, she transfers ownership on herself
Yes,
to you,
yes,
and it's done by money.
yes.
Okay.
Is that the principle then?
Well, we would try to begin to understand in terms of the fact that obviously, clearly then, if you give me something, then I can transfer something in return for that object. So there has to be some type of an acceptance. In other words, I want to give you my ownership, but only on condition that you give me something.
It's a deal.
Well, yeah. So what the Torah is telling you is that that you can transfer ownership. In this case, the woman can transfer ownership to the man, right? If she is willing to do that.
So
You see, so which is interesting. So money is what's called an inducement to give me your ownership. It's an inducement. You see?
So what's the principle begins with?
Well, the principle would be is that ownership can be transferred, okay, if the one transferring it has some type of a benefit. That would be the principle.
Isn't that...
And therefore, since money clearly is beneficial, and it is an inducement for her, but the consequence of receiving the money is so the principle is that the Torah says we don't know why. I mean, because I gave cases the money, therefore you can transfer ownership legally. Yeah, we don't know why that is, but the principle is that transfer can occur, right? If an individual wants to do it because of some benefit which he receives. Period. That's it.
It's interesting because it seems to be based on a posuk, which doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah?
It says, "V'nosan ha'kesef
That's a big
v'kom la."
term.
No, it doesn't exist. The Mishna quotes it.
What's it? What is it?
"V'nosan ha'kesef v'kom la."
The Nosan HaKesef. Well, that's really.
That was going on
Yeah,
the
but you know what
Sunday.
that, you're right, the wording doesn't exist, but the phrasing is a paraphrasing of a pasuk.
The point is that you give the money,
Yeah.
and that benefit accrues to you.
Yes, and therefore you're willing to transfer.
And yeah, because
So-
it implies that there's a transfer.
Yeah, so which
because
is
you
interesting.
receive the benefit.
So what do we now do? We can take a look at this principle and break it down. You see, if you broke this principle down, what would you do? You'd say what? One, the person has to be willing. Yes. Two, the person has to be in receipt of something. Three, it has to be beneficial to the person.
Has some value to the person.
Well, yeah, beneficial. That beneficiality would be of value. Yeah, right? And therefore, what's the fourth thing? The consequence is that this person has the legal ability to transfer ownership. There you are. We've created a structure from that principle. You see? You notice what? But it doesn't say that in the Mishnah at all. All it says, give her some money and she's yours. That's all it says, you know. But we ask ourselves, well, what's the explanation for this? How does it work? You know, and so we're analyzing how it works. And we're breaking it down into its parts. You see? Okay. Great. So we need to what do it. So we've already done case and conduct in halacha. third thing is called principle. Remember, a principle is a statement that explains generally something. That's why it's called a tam. It's called a rationale. It's a reason why this can occur. What can occur? Why you have this din to that case. This conduct to that case. It's an explanation. You see. Okay. What's next? The next would be
derivation.
no essential conditions.
Yeah.
If you look at any given case, it has a lot of things going on in it, you know? What's essential here and what's non-essential? What makes a difference and what doesn't make a difference? You know what I'm saying? In the case of money, or by using your example of Ishus, what's the essential condition?
It has to have value.
Oh, it has to have value. But does it make a difference if this woman is Sfari, Ashkenazi, Yemenite? No, who cares what she is?
Willing.
Who?
Perhaps it might need, even if she's not willing. She can be forced on also.
I mean, willingness, yeah. So what's it? So who the woman is irrelevant. That's called a non-essential condition, right? Right. But willingness is an essential condition. If she doesn't want to do it, forget it.
How do you know that?
What?
That's not in that law. Doesn't say it's mentioned.
Well, no, the Mishna doesn't say it yet. It doesn't,
How are you supposed to know it?
You learn. I mean, you figure. What I'm saying is, when you finally do learn the halacha, you want to understand what the halacha is doing or saying. You know what I'm saying? So we have case, conduct, principle that you want to know from a halacha. Essential conditions. What are the conditions of that halacha, right, that are critical for the din to occur? Very simple. What is essential and what's non-essential? And you'd be surprised how many guys, you know, they mess it up. You know, they can look at essential, they can look at non-essential items and make them essential, or they'll never spot the essential ideas. You see, so they don't really know what's the movement here. You know? That's number 4. Number 5 is derivation. How do we know this? Where do we get it from? You know? And under that, there was a series of subheadings. Do you remember these subheadings?
The rice or the Rabbi.
One. Who is the author of this halacha? Who says it? Is it Yossi, Meir, Yehuda, Kamo, Chachomim? You know, who is it? That's the author of this halacha. 2, what is the authority?
Then we come to the rice or the Rabbi.
How many authorities are there?
The general, major.
It's biblical, Minat Torah.
And
It's Minat Torah, or it's Midrabanan, or it's a minhag. Who's the one? What's the authority of minhag? The Torah is the authority of Minat Torah. I mean, right? Torah is of biblical, right? The Rabban, the Chachomim, the Rabbanim are the authority of Midrabanan, right? Who is the authority of minhag?
You look around.
People.
Who?
The Rabbi.
Who?
The Rabbi.
The community. A community is also authorized to create halachas. That's called a custom of a community. You know what I'm saying? Then there's a 4th authority, which is called a chumrah, which only one guy says, this is the halacha that I observed. But he's the only guy. You know, you don't see it anywhere else. So that's called a chumrah. So there are really 4 levels of authority in any given case. You know, it's like the United States. Is it a federal law? Is it state? Is it local? You know what I'm saying? Or is it international?
Maybe haven't you sort of got a fifth characteristic if you look at it from a negative point of view?
Yeah.
Anissa Doraisa, Anissa Dorabonon.
Yeah.
Then you've got something which is Endas Chachomim Nachin Emenu.
Yeah, okay. Which
Right,
means
which is the
it's
next
permitted, but we're not very happy with it.
It's pasnish, as they say in Yiddish.
But it's permitted.
It's like that, you know.
Is it permitted or not?
Permitted, but metomnished. We don't do it.
Nicht mezonnished.
No, so
Not metornished. If metornished, it would be asa. If
Okay.
mezonnished,
Sorry.
Excuse
Excuse my bad language.
Zonish.
But we don't do it.
Yeah, we don't do it because it's not what?
Not appropriate.
It's not the community.
It lacks appropriateness. So even if something legally is permitted, right, in terms of human behavior or societal norms, it's not appropriate.
That's under community.
That would be on the community, yeah. That particularly, yeah.
I mean, say for
Community,
and then it would be a breach of a minhag, and then it would be a breach of a chumrah.
It's not community.
It's not even community.
Community doesn't decide that. That would be
yeah,
decided
it's not
amongst the
community.
Rabbi.
It's
It's an agreement.
It's a hard thing.
It's an understanding, you know. It's there's a famous Ramban. You know, you could be a novel Bershus Torah. You know, a novel is a novel.
Not good.
No, what's novel? What's it?
It's a novel, yeah.
Scoundrel.
A scoundrel.
It all depends on what you mean by
The
scoundrel.
novel is a pagan.
A novel means somebody who's really
Disgraceful.
novela comes from that's from the word. Whatever. A novel simply means somebody who's
Novel
really
Kishma Kain Hu.
yeah.
Novel Shema, the novel.
It's a novel. It's like a disgusting individual, sort of,
Mhm.
you know. Bishus Torah. You know what I'm saying? And he has the Torah says okay. So
So
that clearly,
It's the whole story of novel. It's the story of novel, where in fact what he did was Bereshus Torah,
yeah.
but at the end he ended up losing his life, and King David married his wife.
Oh, you're talking about
I'm talking about the
Uriah?
story of the novel. No, I'm talking about the story.
Uriah Chiti? That's
No,
King David.
no, it's in Nova. It's in
You're
Shmuel
talking
Aleph.
about
Shmuel
Ahab.
Aleph Kafhe.
You want Achav?
No, Shmuel Aleph Kafhe. With the story of
I think Abigail,
David
maybe?
novel with Abigail. It's the story of
Abigail.
Abigail.
Oh,
Chapter-
okay.
chapter
Yeah,
24.
okay. Yeah. Not
He actually
much,
says, Kishma Kain Hu, Novel
Yeah,
Shema, but
yeah,
Novel Hu.
okay,
It
yeah.
seems that it comes from that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, but that's no, the authority there. Oh, that's an interesting question. Who is the authority that says you shouldn't do it? Well, it is the Chachomim. It's not. The Torah doesn't say you can't do it. It doesn't mean it just says. Torah says either yes or no. The Chachomim said you can do it minat Torah, but we say it's not appropriate. It's not even Xera. It's not Osim B'Drabanan. It doesn't have that level of authority, you know. But the Chachamim say we can't stop you. It's not Xera, but boy, is this not appropriate, you know. So in that sense, the authority is Midrabanan because they're the one who are opposing it. The question, it is Midrabanan. However, why do the Rabbanon say it? Is it Xera? Xera is issued for a specific reason, right? So the reason for Xera is if you allow A, then you will come to do B. And B is Osman and Torah. So if A is allowed, you will come to do something B, which is Osman and Torah. So therefore, we prohibit or forbid you from doing even A. That's Xera, right? But here, you can do A. It's not. We're not worried that there's a Torah thing that would be violated. You know, the concept behind this is inappropriateness. It's inappropriate according to the spirit of the law. Let's look at it that way. Anyway,
Which is actually higher than minhag.
it's what?
It would be higher. That would give you 5 categories.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, because
that
you
would
have
be
this is the rice.
yes,
this is the
because
Rabbanon.
it's
Ein
midrabanan.
don
Yes.
das chum down in
Yes.
minhag. A breach of a minhag and
Yeah.
then a breach of a chumrah.
Yes. Yeah. It would be high because it's the authorities of the Rabbanon, except it has a different reason than Xera. That's all. It's not lest one to come to violate a derisa. It's because you don't want to engage in an inappropriate act that violates the spirit of the Torah. Look at it that way.
What's an example of that?
Of what?
Of inappropriateness? This kind of
Breach of agreement.
Oh,
in an agreement.
Breach of
Require a
agreement.
wife, if one just cohabits with a woman, that would be.
you mean to use that form or method?
That's their method too.
Rabbanan Asr.
Wouldn't that be considered in this category?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's not appropriate, let's say.
But it's
But it's
allowed.
permitted.
It's
Yeah.
permitted,
Torah
but it's
says
not
it.
appropriate.
Isn't the classic example of Ein das chum down in a minhag? When people make an agreement but there has not been a kinyan, and then somebody breaks out, and then somebody breaks the agreement. There's only been a kinyan like kinyan.
Oh yeah. That's called Mishapora.
Yeah, no, that's the next level up. Isha Porah is where the person's actually given his
You
money
back- yeah,
and
actually,
then
yeah,
it's
you
actually
can-
paid, and then he backs out.
That's out, yeah.
Ein das Chomim then is one level below,
Yeah.
which is that, if I remember rightly, that there's been no transfer of money, but there's been an agreement, and then the person pulls
Yeah,
out before it's been transferred.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I want to go further. Derivation, so we have author, authority, right? And then we have, now if the authority is Torah or biblical, then you want to know the derivational method of the Lamed-based Midas, which method is employed. It's the Kalchoimim, the Shov opinion of. Then you want to know the Posek. What Posek is the Midah addressing itself to? So that's number 4, so to speak. Author, authority, which Midah, which Posek. Also the Tzivoy form. Is it a loisase? Is it an asay? Because that has a lot of ramifications. You know, which form is the tzivoy? How did God command you, in a positive way or a negative way? And the 6th thing would be frequency. How often is this mitzvah stated in the Torah? And sometimes mitzvahs have more than once. And therefore, when that happens, you have a concept called redundancy. Why are we saying it twice? Because you can learn something from the second time. So you have these 6 ideas that come from a derivation if it's biblical. If it's rabbinical or midrabanan, you still have author, you have the authority which is midrabanan, and now it follows. First of all, what is it? Is it exero or takona? What's the nature of the law? Is it exero or decree not to do something, or is it that takona to do something? You know. Number 4, does it have an asmachta? Does it have a biblical illusion or reference, allusion to this halacha midrabanan? Number 5, was there a precipitating event? Why did they do this? And was there a specific event that happened that the Chazal said, we need to issue, you know? Or was the event svara? It makes sense. You know, just it's logical, you know? So that would be number 5, I think. Number 6 would be, which Bezdin did it? Which Bezdin, if it's midrabanan, which Bezdin? Is it Bezdin of Shlomo Melech, Moshe Rabbeinu, Ezra? And then when was it promulgated? And there you are, 7 ideas, if it's D'Rabbanan. Yeah. Now I'm giving you what's called the ideal breakdown. In practice, you don't have to do all of this, obviously, or else you spend your whole life doing 3 halachas, finding out the information, you know. But I'm giving you what's called the ideal, you know, the real. This is the gamut of what you really love to know, right? Okay, so we had derivation. So we have 5 things. We have case, conduct, principle, essential conditions, and derivation. 5. Okay? Great. Now, number 6 is called case variations. What happens if you look at the halacha and you vary an essential condition? What happens to the din? Does the din change? Does the principle change? You see? Where do you see this? No, they're learning Yevamos now. It's classic, you know. There are many case variations. And that, in many ways, is a study of an entire area. For instance, you know, 1, Yevamos, right? There are case variations. What is a Yevama, really? You know, what is a Yevama? You know, it's a sister-in-law that is obligated, or rather, it's the brother-in-law who's obligated to marry his sister-in-law because his brother died without any kids. That's one case. Case 2. The brother-in-law died, no kids, right? But the woman that he's married, right, also happens to be also for another reason besides Eshes Och. Not only is this brother-in-law, right, and this sister-in-law, not only are they forbidden to each other because she's Eshes Och, she was the wife of his brother, right? What happens if she's also his daughter, his brother's, daughter, and so therefore can he marry his niece? In other words, what happens if she had an erva independent of the erva of Eshes Och? That's another case. What?
Could be married to her sister or something.
Yeah. So, and you know, so that's the second case. Third case. What happens if wife A is fine, but this guy had two wives, wife A and B. What happens? So, who does he marry? Wife A or wife B? Case number 4. What happens if A was okay, but B was another erva? You see? Case 5. You see what I'm doing? I'm going up the ladder from simple to complex. What happens if this guy has 2 brothers? Not 1 brother, 2 brothers. Or what happens if the brother's a minor? Or what's called a brother? It does happen from the same father, mother. Look at all these different type of cases. So ultimately what you want to really do to have a grip is you're going to assemble all the cases from simple to very complex. You see, and you're going to see the variations of din as the different conditions change. You see, and that gives you a tremendous look at this thing called Yevamos. You see. So by varying the case, you get a tremendous contrast, an understanding of what Yevamos in this case is all about and so on. You see? That's called case variations, where you vary the case and you see what happens to the din. You see? So what you begin to form is a tremendous picture of all the possible variations. It gives you an incredible command.
You try and do this before you learn the Gemara?
You can't because you don't know all the cases. But what I always say is that you don't want to learn all the details and then put it together. Because that's going to be, you know...
You don't know where to put them.
Even if you know it, it's not that you don't want to go through the whole Mishnayos and then begin to structure it. No. You want to look at each case and ask yourself, which is, you know, where does it belong? Actually, wait, hold on. Because that's next. So we have case, conduct, principle, essential conditions, derivation, case variations. That's the end of analysis. Now we begin synthesis. So first thing is, what category does this halacha belong to? You see, what's its category? So if I asked you in the case of Yevamos, right, which I think the whole Daf Yomi is still in it, you know, and I asked you, you know, the din of Yevamos, where a brother has to marry his sister-in-law if in fact his brother died without children. That's the classic case, right? What's its category? Where does it fit? Where does it come out of? It's part of something. It's not just, you know.
Mishna divided it into 6 categories.
Who?
The Shisha Siddur Mishna made it automatically, did some kind of a division. Nashem.
Well, that's too large.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. It's about women. That's true. That's huge. I mean, between that idea and this idea, there's a lot that goes in between. You don't want to go so high. You know? It's like, you know what it's like? I want to get a view of New York, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a picture from Mars. Wow. You know, it's like, you know. So, give me the category of Yevama. The din of a Yevama with a Yovam. What's its category?
The category is that when a man dies, his name should be allowed to continue.
That's the principle. That's the principle, not a category. Right? It's an explanation. A category is not an explanation. A category is an overall conceptual place where you can classify this.
So the immediate category...
What was that?
It's acquiring a wife. It's another way to acquire a wife.
No.
When an erva is permitted.
That's it.
That's it. Yevamos is a story of, very good. Yevamos is a story of what? Of how can we make an exception to a woman that is normally forbidden. It's called an exception or a deviation from the concept called erva. So the first idea would be what? The concept called erva. The second concept would be what? How do we deviate from erva? And Yevama is a classic way. You see? There are other ways of deviating from erva, where an erva can become permitted. You know, let's say Achayisha. You marry a woman, she dies, can you marry a sister?
Yes.
That's not Yevama. Yeah. So, in other words, the category is exceptions or deviations of Aroyas. Period. See? Beautiful. That's it. Very good. Great. That's a category.
It's exactly the same as as Rabbi mentioned, with beginning with Baba Kama. Right? The background is, the category is that there's a din of Maziki. And that will normally one pays damage
Yes.
to whoever one does it. But the Arba of us are
Deviations.
exceptions and deviations.
Exactly.
Exactly the same. There's Issa Erva, but the concept of the Yavoma is a deviation.
Exactly.
You commit something
That's it. But the category is what? Is erva deviation. That's the category. So then we don't get stuck into Yavoma itself. You see what I'm saying? That's why you have all. That's why Yavoma is all about erva. That's why you have the parsha of Iguna there. Why? Because an Eishes Ish is an erva, but there's no real deviation. The question is, when is she not an erva if the guy's dead? So there, it's a discovery: is the husband alive or not? You can't permit an Eishes Ish while the husband is alive. You see? So there, the way you can permit an Eishes Ish, if in fact the marriage has been terminated by his death. So there, we're concerned with what? Evidence. We need to find evidence if the guy's dead or not. You see? Over here, we need to make sure that the guy died and has no kids. You know, and so on. So but essentially, it's still dealing with Aroyas, Erva. But look what the category does. Wow. You see? It connects with the homosexual. That's what a category does. It gives an incredible context. You know, it is what's called the closest, almost, to the big picture.
So in other words, it comes out like this, that with the Zikin, the category is, right, the main category is legal relations. Right? That means that if you cause damage to something...
Zikin or Yevamos?
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about, I'm talking about both of them actually, there's legal relations. Because in the case of the Zikin, if A does damage to B, they're legal relations to the degree that A has to compensate B. The exceptions and the protim is the Arabavas and the Zikin. Same here with our royals, right? The people that you're permitted to marry, the people that you're not permitted to marry.
Yes.
Right? Those that the Torah does not allow legal relations with is the long list in Parshas Acharei Mos.
Yeah.
However, there are exceptions, and one of them is Yavoma Yavola.
Yes.
In the particular
That's
cases.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'm talking about, so therefore the first 6 ideas was analysis. The concept of a categorization is synthesis, where you're trying to look for the underlying idea beyond the halacha itself. In other words, what have I done? I've connected this halacha to many other halachas. All the deviations. You see? That's the concept of synthesis. It's a critical idea. It's also a critical ability to acquire, because the clarity is tremendous. In a certain sense, categorization is a greater clarity than analysis is. In a certain sense, you know, it's like even if I define something, fine. But if I see it in context, you know, if I see its background, the halacha is its foreground. But if I take a look at its background, wow, what a view.
Yeah, but actually it's a shortcut, because if you take, say, the first 4 prokim of Yevamos, and then you start taking the simple case, right, which is in the first Mishna, Chamesh Esrei Noshim, right?
Yeah.
Then you start adding the exceptions, and the exceptions of the exceptions, and so on, and all the other different cases, and you arrange them on a tree. Then with that knowledge, you've got that knowledge behind you. You start going through the first 4 prokim in the Mishnahs. It all holds together. It's all coherent.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier.
Sure.
Because you've got a coherent structure, you've got the same spirals. You're not dealing with different cases. You're dealing with cases which are a progression one on the other.
Yeah.
So it actually eases it. It's a shortcut at the end.
Sure, of course, yeah, sure.
There's a bit of spade work at the beginning, but in the end you've got a shortcut.
Yeah. And not only that, from memory it's gewaldig. You will never forget something that you see within context of something else. You see, the memory works. The key principle of memory is what?
Association.
Association.
More box to put it in.
It's not just
It's association.
Yeah. It's association. So therefore, the greatest association is a structure. That's what it is. That's why you don't forget things in a structure. You know, it's when something is a fragment that you can forget it, because it's not associated with anything else. You know, so to structure or to synthesize is wonderful for memory. You see, because then you see it. It's not a fragment. You see it within the context of that. Okay, what have I now developed for you? I have developed a checklist. for halacha. Right? Look how many things are just to the halacha, you know. And meanwhile, everybody's sitting down on halacha, come on. You have no idea what's the wealth of information behind the halacha. Now, we're going to sit down on halachas, we're not going to do all this. You know what I'm saying? So, from all these ideas, case, conduct, principle, essential conditions, derivation, case variations, categorization, and by the way, the last one was structure. Because what's a category? A category is a part of a structure. A structure is a totality that has a lot of categories arranged based on the relationship. You see, a structure is really what you're after. So, like in Yevamos, okay, the case variations, and so on. So what do we find? We find that there's a concept called deviation of erva. But the structure really is erva. It's really erva, except one category is called deviations. Another category can be called, what are they? You see, what are the ervas? Another category can be called, what are the outcomes of the ervas? Now what? What is it? You see, each one of these are a category of erva, forbidden relationships in marriage. One of the categories is called deviations. See, so deviations is a category. Erva is the structure.
Talking about deviations, could one also add to the list, to what degree of risk is one allowed to take in Issa Erva? The whole business with Aguna. You are allowed in certain cases to accept evidence that would not normally be accepted, but if that evidence proves out to be wrong, you're in the stew.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. The famous cases of that. Where it looked like a woman came and testified that her husband died, and she saw it. Moshe Feinstein was once a case where she came and she testified that her husband died. So he said, no, she's lying. He said, and it came out, she was lying. She wanted to marry somebody else, whatever, and he was overseas or whatever, And I forgot exactly how he figured it out, but it's astounding. They have a certain siyata d'shmaya. Imagine Moshe Feinstein, Chas v'Shalom, being mocked in an iguna, an ish, and all of a sudden, 5 years later, her husband comes back, and meanwhile she's had 5 kids with this guy. Oh, he's right. They're all mamzerim. And so, even if you follow the halacha, it's an interesting, question and so on. Anyway.
But the Beis Din would have normally, not of the caliber of Moshe Feinstein.
Yeah, maybe they would have wanted it.
Would have allowed the woman to get married.
Yeah. There has to have been cases where they wanted the erva and the husband walked in a couple of years later and said, excuse me, what are you doing in my house, Oh yeah, no question about that. Look, in life, anything can happen. Yeah. and it often does. I mean, the weirdest cases, you read this sometimes in newspapers, I don't believe, what they call it stranger than fiction. It's just amazing what happens. Anyway, what I've just done, so you see, you have case, conduct, principle, essential conditions, derivation, case variations, categorization, structure. 8 different categories of what there is to know in a halacha. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to do all of this? No? Maybe. But what are all these, what are the most important things to glean out? Certainly initially. You know what I'm saying? Later on, you can go back, once you did the Succah, you can go back and fill in the other information. But what's the most important? Well, case is obviously critical. You have to know what's the situation in halacha. Conduct is critical. What's the din? The principle is critical because that tells you why. That is the explanation. Without a principle, you don't know what's going on. And you can never analyze new cases because if you don't know the principle in the old case, how can you see if it resembles the new case? You can never apply it. You know what I'm saying? So clearly these 3 are critical. Okay? essential conditions, you don't have to do it because more or less you have a certain feel of it. You know, you could ask, you know, I'm going to, you know, derivation also is important, but what's important in derivation, basically, is what's the authority? That's most important. Is it Torah, midrabanan? What is it? That's usually the most important. It'd be nice also if you know what this pasuk is, if it's Torah. Actually, you should know that. If it's Torah, what is the pasuk? It's nice to know. I should say more nice to know, but you know. And if it's a midrabanan, is it gzera takana? You know. And then, of course, the concept of principle. What would be the principle? The principle is, why is this gzera midrabanan? You apply the principle to the halacha, which is midrabanan, and so on. So you have case, conduct, principle. You have authority, and maybe also the pasuk, and then the category is critical. That is critical. You do not move unless you can figure out its category from a halacha, even though you don't know the rest of the Masechta. Now I know you're going to look at me and say, "Wow, how do you do that?" The truth is that everybody here is a bright guy. You'd be surprised what you can do if you tap into your intelligence. Most people sell their minds short. They do not really, in many ways, feel that they have the ability. But the truth is, if you learn a skill, you can do it. You can look at something and say, for instance, you see this? What is this? It's a chair. What's its category?
Furniture.
There you are. Say, hey, there you are. You know? Furniture. You know what I'm saying? What's the category of furniture? Gets a little harder. What?
Is it some a house appliance, maybe?
Is that an appliance? No. What's above furniture? It gets a little harder as you go up.
Yeah.
But if you can do it, you have a much greater idea.
Useful structures for living purposes. Not for.
What's that called? What's that called?
Comfort.
No. So what I say, this is a chair. It is part of the class called furniture, and furniture is part of the class called house furnishings.
Furniture.
Furnishings. There you are.
But it's still not describing what.
Furnishings is not lav dafka furniture. It could be pictures. What?
It's anything that
Paintings.
feels...
Bookcases.
But we still didn't define what furnishings are.
No, we didn't. I left out. I'm assuming everybody knows what these things are. But anyway, what I want to say is that it is critical to synthesize as you go on and not wait till the end. Because the problem is at the end you're going to have 1,000 details. And you're going to get so bogged down and so blinded by the details, you're going to have real problems. You know what I'm saying? Therefore, as much as you can, try to come away with an understanding of the category initially, as much as you can. You're going to look at it. Sometimes you look at something and say, I don't know, I have no idea. But generally, you have enough ideas. You know, your Mishna, or your Shanitnes, you know, what's its category? What's the category of that halacha?
Kinyonim.
Who?
Kinyonim.
Kinyonim, yeah. What's a kinyon? A method of acquisition. What's a
acquisition?
method of acquisition? What is a method of acquisition, really? I mean, you go up.
Communication.
No.
Transfer.
Ownership.
Well, that's communication. Of
To
objects.
create a legal state called bias.
Ah, okay.
That's what the acquisition does. It creates a legal state called ownership. What? Oh yeah, well, okay, that needs a definition. But I'm just saying, so Ishus is really, the halacha in Ishus is about really acquisition. But acquisition is really all about creating a legal state called ownership. And ownership itself is anybody go higher? Who?
Yeah. Ownership is the degree of interest and control that you have over an object.
That's the definition. I want a higher category to ownership.
Relationship.
To what? Relation is a word. What?
Other things.
Okay, good.
Exclusivity.
Well, no. That's
No, that goes
that's
down to the
it's a
definition.
condition. No. man's relationship with that which is external to him. One of them is called ownership. You know, and so on. You know, it's okay. Anyway, so that's the concept of. So what we've done now is provided a checklist for the concept called halacha. What a difference! You could take a look at any Pirush now, and you ask yourself, well, what is the Rav telling me? Is the Rav telling me a derivation? Is he telling me? Is he describing the case in the conduct? You know, is he telling me an essential condition? What is he doing? Is he telling me a principle? You see, you can actually identify what the commentary is saying. And therefore you will know what he left out. And then you have to seek it somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? What a difference. You know, you don't come in, you come in as, it's almost like you come in as a balabas. You come in as a guy who knows exactly where he's at and what he's doing. You don't come in as a guy who's, well, I'm completely ignorant, teach me. No, you don't want to do that. You want to come in prepared. That's what you want to do. And to have a checklist of these ideas is the preparation.
In other words, what you've got is you've got a piece of the jigsaw, and this exercise shows you where this piece belongs in the picture.
Exactly, yeah. And it's the jigsaw that's critical, ultimately.
It's the whole picture, the complex picture.
That's the true clarity comes from the picture, as we see, you know, from your vomits, you look really at himself, you know, and so on.
See, I never thought of your vomits like that. Never.
Well, that's
But
what
it all makes sense. I never thought of it as an exception. I thought it was the first Masechta in Noshim. We started with Masechtas Noshim.
And you're right.
And guess what?
I never thought it was an exception.
Everybody would agree with you, but they're all wrong. Because
I never thought of the Arab Avos
It's like
Nazika as an
that
exception.
yeah,
I thought, well, that's how you begin Bava Kama.
yeah, which is true.
But you don't. You have, it assumes that there's a canvas already, right? And the canvas is...
That's the problem. The Mishnayos, forget about the Gemara, the Gemara clearly makes that assumption. But the Mishnayos assumes that you've got an enormous database before you get to the Mishnah. And then the Mishnah will give you its database. I remember what I once said? The basis of all halachas is the Torah. The Mishnayos is the details. Actually, it's the Taryag. The Taryag mitzvahs is the basis of all laws. The details of the Taryag are the Mishnah. The problems of the Taryag is the Gemara. And the application of the Taryag is the Shulchan Aruch. There you are. Isn't that interesting? So where should we start? From the Gemara, which is the problems?
Sure.
This is what everybody does. You know? And you start from the Taryag. Really? If they did it right, you would take 613 commandments and you would create 10 categories, standard categories. What is the mitzvah? Who is obligated? Who is exempt? Where is it applicable? When is it applicable? What are some of its important conditions, etc. And you'd fill out those 10 boxes for each mitzvah. So you would have 6,130 ideas. What a database.
Yeah.
Before you got into the Mishnah, what a knowledge base you would have. Just from learning the Taryag, yeah. There's one that do all this? Or, well, you assemble, yeah. You could put it together, yeah. Yeah.
Who does it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Ah.
Yeah, well, there are different forums that have talked about the Taryag, but each one seems to provide different information. But if you ever want the greatest database of all, which is amazing, is to do this. How many guys have gone through the 613 commandments? Very few.
Those who've read Sefer Chinuch have been Sefer
Yeah, yeah, okay, that's true. But the problem with the Sefer Chinuch is it's chronologically ordered. To really understand it, you want to order it according to the Rambam, which orders it by category or topic. Yeah, like all the mitzvahs and asay and lo asay of Hilchos Pesach, all the mitzvahs of Yibam, etc. You don't want to do because the Torah is there's no memucha. The Torah is achronological. It's not, you know. But I want to tell you, but the fastest way to know Kol HaTorah Kula is to go through the Torah. It's astounding how simple it is. Fastest way. You can do the whole thing in 3 months. And you'd walk away with 6,130 pieces of information, right? That's of Kol HaTorah Kula. You know every commandment ever issued by God. And you can decide how extensive you want to be. You can create 15 categories, I don't care. And fill out all 15 and look at, but whatever it is, you would have an... I'll never forget, a long time ago, I was learning in yeshiva, and Rabbi Weinberg from Torah, right? He used to come and learn there the whole week. I was in that yeshiva. It's a long time ago.
Really?
1960.
You taught there?
No, I was a Talmud there.
1961?
64.
No.
51 years ago. Anyway, he used to come and teach. No, he didn't come and teach. He used to learn there, whatever. That was before Osamer. The one who used to be the Rabbi Mendel Weinbach, he was my Charusa. Then. And then he used to learn there, so once he learned there, so then Rabbi Weinberg learned there. A bunch of interesting guys. This was long before they ever dreamt of Osamer and Eshet Torah.
What was this called?
It was called Rodden, because the one who gave the money was a grandson of he was a son of Londinsky, who was the son-in-law of the Chofetz Chaim. So he got money probably from the Germans. So he decided to open a yeshiva. He opened a yeshiva in Netanya, that's where it was. But what I say is, so I used to speak to Noach Weinberg. He had a very interesting person, a real innovative thinker. So he once said to me, he once challenged me, he said, listen, I want you to memorize the entire 613 mitzvahs in the Lashon of the Rambam. And I'll give you a gift, I'll give you a sheet of mikvetzes, which I still have, by the way, which is interesting.
I assume you did it.
What?
What? Did it?
I did it, yeah. It took me, I remember, it took me 4 weeks. I memorized the whole thing, up to the Lashon, which is just, and then some guy tested me, and I rattled off the whole 613 mitzvahs.
Wow.
But that's not what I'm trying to bring out. What I'm trying to bring out is after I finished, I said, this is incredible. What a view. I know every mitzvah that God ever sent, basically. And I could see it all in front of me. You know what I'm saying? All the mitzvahs of all the Yom Tov and Ezekiel and Kochim. I had it in that form. And I didn't do this where you would have 10 categories. I didn't do that. I just memorized. But that itself was an amazing... And I said, and it only took me a couple of weeks. I said, could you imagine in a couple of weeks how much you could walk away with if you do it right? If you do the right sequence. But if you don't do it, you're going to spin your wheels for the next 35 years. And that's what basically people do. They spin their wheels. And they never master because they do not have what's called the right preparation. You see, they all jump straight into Gemara, which deals with the problems. And the Gemara assumes you have a massive database. Even the Mishna assumes you have a database. But Gemara is totally that. You see? So what did it take me? It took me a couple of weeks. Okay, now probably taking longer because, whatever. But it was phenomenal. I would say you should do it. Take a look at the Rambam, and it's in English. You can get, and go through every mitzvah. You don't have to memorize the Lashon. I did, because that was the deal. But you can write 2 or 3 words of that mitzvah. Categorize them according to the way the Rambam does, which he does. He does it for you, and just memorize them. You can't believe the basis of what that does for you.
Where exactly does one access the list?
What?
Where exactly in the Rambam does one access the
Well, in
list?
the beginning of each of the halachas, of the halachic areas, Prakim, not the Hilchas Yibam. He has the lines, but there's a list online. Somebody wants to get it.
Yes, you get it online.
Yeah, and in fact, somebody from Eshet Torah, what was his name? He actually wrote a little book, had a little book with all the mitzvahs and in English. Hebrew and English, so you don't even have to translate, and just go through that. You'll be astounded at what the mitzvahs are. I remember then I was looking at mitzvahs, I never heard of this mitzvah. Like Bata Orachayma, a walled city or something, how do you redeem it? So I never heard of that. What?
It's there, it's in Parshas Bahar.
Fine, but I'm just saying, you'll be surprised that there are mitzvahs there that, wow, I didn't know there was a mitzvah like that. But it's all there. That's and it'll take you a month. But you realize you will have gone through the Kol HaTorah Kula. Not a bad idea. And then if you really get ambitious,
That's my homework.
what?
That's my homework.
I'm not, look, you know, this is, let me put it, this is not yeshivish. Yeshivas would never do this. You know, we're not going to their motives and why and so on, you know. But it's a tremendous mistake. That should be, you know, Torah 101. Think about it, you know. And, you know, you want to become a, you know, an economist, right? You don't start off graduate school. It's ridiculous. You start off, what is economics? And so on, you know. You want to be anything, you know. You start off with whatever, 101, 102, you know, the way the colleges are. That's what you do it.
Well,
Torah 101 is the Taryag Mitzvahs.
well, a recent study showed, conducted that amongst the Israeli population,
The what?
amongst the Israeli population, almost 9 people out of 10, cannot rattle off the 10 Commandments. And it's in every shul.
The Ten Commandments.
10 Commandments. Yeah.
Cannot recite the 10
Are
Commandments.
there really 10 now, Joe?
No, no,
There were 11.
I was astounded.
Yeah. And the 10 Commandments are like the most known of all the mitzvahs. You know, especially because they've all seen the movie, the 10 Commandments. So I can now know the 10 Commandments, right?
According to Sergeant Gorn, you've got the Taryag Mitzvahs fits into the 10 Commandments.
Who? Taryag.
No, yeah, Sergeant Gorn. In fact, Rashi quotes him.
What Rav Sadia wrote, there's a 3-volume set. Rav Sadia held that all the Taryag is in the 10 Commandments. So he wrote a text, it's a poem of some sort, that was written, not written, it's over there. And then you have a commentary on that. What's the name of the commentary? He's a tremendous goyim. He wrote a 3-volume Pirush on Rav Sadia Goyim's Taryag. And it's like the Chinuch, and he brings an enormous amount of material ideas. Prolab, that's his name. Prolab. Got the name of the Sefer. But the Chinuch has a lot of ideas, you know? And so on, just to go through the Chinuch. And for those who want the art school, it has translated the Chinuch in English. The interesting thing about art school, besides it's a translation, and its commentary has a lot of information. So actually, what you do is, like I say, you know, create the 10 categories, or 11 or 12, whatever you want. And then look for, that is your checklist. And then go through each mitzvah and say, okay, let's see, who's exempt? Who's obligated? Where does it take place? When? What are the essential acts of this mitzvah? What is its category? What is it part of? Does it have any rabbinical expansions or extensions? You see? You know, and look for the answers. And after a month, whatever, 2 months, you will have an unbelievable database.
What's the name of the set? Did it start off with a volume on the Asarsa Dibros?
You talking about who? No, that's something else.
What
That's
is
a
that?
guy, the big one, you know?
Yeah.
But I think he lost his funding.
Oh, terrible.
You know what the problem, the problem with that set, well, that's my view. Yeah, I want to tell you something. The problem with that is it was massive amount of information. And therefore, number one, and number two, it wasn't organized structurally. It was just topically organized, you know. In some cases, there's a bunch of topics. The key is to create a structure that is organized according to the relationship of all the ideas, not topically. You don't want a topical, well, all this information is about the same topic. No, I don't want that. I want to organize the information based on what is fundamental, what is a detail, what's a rule. See, that's relationship. That's the key kind of structure that you should aim for. Like we did with Vomus. You know, your Vomus is nothing more basically about deviations of Ereva, right? And what is that based on? Ereva. You see, that's a relationship. It's not a topic. Part of the problems of the Rambam himself, and that we have, well, it's not that it's a problem, but part of the style that the Rambam adopted isn't a relationship structure. It is a topical structure, where although it is sequence, which is nice, he has a sequence where he builds. But the problem is that the sequence is fragmented. It's not connected in terms of a true relationship, you see. And the greatest way of Havana, of understanding, is to look at a structure as a relationship structure, not as a topical. You know, it's like saying, you know, well, all the information you want to know about Shemitah, I just dump it into one place. That's, so you've organized based on its topics, you know. But I would never organize the halachas of Shemitah You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You'd organize halacha of Shemitah differently according to its relationships. You see, so how would you organize Shemitah? You'd say, 1, what is its designated time period? 2, what are the prohibitions in Shemitah? You see. Number 3, how do you deal with these? What are the objects that Shemitah deals with that are prohibited, and so on? And you begin to create a structure of Shemitah, and so on. But anyway, that's an idea. If anybody has time and you want to master the entire Torah, do the Taryag.
Incidentally,
It's a lot quicker than doing it tomorrow.
there's a field.
Is what?
There's a field which in Chutz La'aretz we sell in Chazor Sashatz on Shavuos, which lists all the 613
Okay.
It begins at 12 Chalta.
Okay.
As
Yeah.
an Chol Yisrael, and then it goes through all of them on the whole list.
Which
Well,
one?
well,
We
Taryag.
say it must have from the Chazor Sashatz.
Oh, I see.
I don't think all the Eigot, but certainly the Eigot that I knew.
Interesting.
Okay. So we've gone through the checklist of halacha. Then I want to tell you the checklist of a Mishna, which is a composite of all the halachas. And once we did that, we go right into Sukkah, and I'm hoping everybody's going to look at Sukkah and begin to tell me, figure it out, what is Sukkah all about, and how do we divide it, how do we organize it, and so on, and we begin to get a handle on Sukkah, Any questions? What is the reaction of the people to all this?
Let's get moving.
Yeah, it's good. Let it roll.
Okay.
Ready to roll.
It's
Thank you
great.
very much. I have to show you some very, very quick thing at some point.
Okay.
How to use that thing.
Oh, okay, fine.
Where do you put your finger in? It's,
Yeah, yeah.
It's not what you expect.
Okay, that's fine. Any questions so far?
I just have a comment that since I went through this last time,
Yeah.
we were here, and now listening to it this time, it is not just twice as clear, like 10 times clear.
Yeah.
Because of now.
Because I had heard it once before when I was completely confused. Now when I'm coming back and listening to it again,
Yeah.
it's just night and day. It's just a whole different level.
Yeah,
of
it's a
understanding.
clear map.
But
Yeah,
before it was just concepts that were just bubbling
Yes,
around.
that's
Now I
right.
actually beginning to
It's
start
fun,
to know where the things fit in.
In a certain way, it's a lot
It
of
was
fun.
just, I wasn't even familiar with the terminology. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You agree?
What happens Thursday night? What kind of class do you
Thursday night, I give this kind of lecture to a different group of people.
Ah.
It's just in the evening, so if a guy can't make it in the morning, that's all. Basically, it's an evening kind of.
Is it the same guys that are already experienced with the...
No, they're not experienced at all.
There's no problem hearing it over again, right?
No, not at all. These guys are not experienced. You have to see it.
I mean, they're starting way behind from where we'll
Yeah, I haven't
starting.
even told them this. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm actually doing this evening. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, very good.
Great.
That would have been the best time for me.
What, Thursday night?
I would love to have that.
Excellent, good.
Oh, thank you. I
I
got
didn't
help
make
these,
all this right
Yeah,
here.
now vote.
you know?
I gotta help.
You
gonna
guys
make copies of
put
this.
them way ahead of everybody
Maybe one
else.
day maybe we can sit down and chart out a little get.
No, I'm gonna give it to
Just structure. Well, if I start trying to do it,
Fine.
then you'll help me.
But yeah,
Okay,
see if you can put it
let
together.
me try to do what I can, the
Okay.
Band-Aid
What
job.
time
and then
Exactly. What?
Be well.
Say it.
Have a good day. Be well.
Yeah, take care. Want to close the door? How? Yeah. Anything getting more enlightened in this?
This is yours.
Yes.
So,
Did you want us to tell me? No.
Good review.
No, very good review.
I'm gonna,
Yeah.
pardon me, yeah, sorry.
These categories, items, you have to keep them in mind always. You know, these
Yeah.
without this, it's like a
I'm gonna
compass.
put it, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this up on, in my upcoming class. I'll send you the link.
How are you today?
Yeah, what was your...
Nope. Clearer?
It's not gonna go over this.
No,
Each time it gets clearer.
It's not gonna go over this.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think.
If anybody knows anybody that wants to come, you know,
People
yeah,
can't come in the
invite them.
morning.
How's
I'm coming
Rabbi
anyway,
doing?
whether he gives it
Fine.
up or not.
Send him my contact, you talk to him.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, come to
Email,
it.
I'm gonna put it up.
How's,
on Google
Israel,
Plus and send you a link to this.
Well, Hashem.
Oh,
I need to,
Want me to write it down?
he
Let me write it
just
down.
recently
Make your
married
life
off
easier.
one of his daughters.
Oh, yeah.
I think I told
I
you.
can put it on the cover. You want me to write it on the cover?
Okay,
On the
sweet.
back page?
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah?
Okay.
Like the
It's
old
our
days.
understanding,
Like the old days, huh?
but we have a state of mind that frequently distorts what the system would otherwise produce.
Yeah.
And that's what I think happens in a war regarding trying to understand the Arab-Israeli conflict.
No.
We have a state of mind that defies this type of analysis.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know how good it is.
This
So-
thing, this is called thinking.
Did you read it?
So the
This is what it's
question,
all about.
what I'm trying to work on here is what motivates the state of mind.
Oh,
No, some man is on it.
state of mind is called laziness.
Is what?
Laziness and untrained.
Right, lazy.
Everybody's lazy.
That's it.
It requires a lot of effort to think.
And it is,
I
I
don't
think,
want to do that. What do you think everybody's passive with the internet? They just want to sit back and soak up the information. No one wants to think anymore. We live in a generation where everything's
well,
passive.
we're babbling. You can't think while you're on the phone. It's 24/7.
We live in a very lazy generation. That's the problem.
They could have increased the ink. Which makes it's just too much.
How you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
How's your
I
professor
thought I
doing?
did, I'm not sure.
I just had a new book out and
Wow,
new poetry.
poetry, yeah.
Okay.
I'm working on new ones, and I'm working, there's a Rav in New York, Rav Warhand.
Yeah?
His father was the chief rabbi of Czechoslovakia, and he saved many Jews and money and arms
Yeah.
before Israel. And so, and what I put a book project together. So he saved so many Yidden after the show. I got passports, got people out during the war.
I have so many
People don't know the story.
You should tell them to, yeah, Hashem.
Case
Yeah, well,
principle,
we're doing the research.
essential condition,
Interviewing people.
Yeah, Yad Hashem.
derivation,
Well, not yet. I mean,
authority
his life would
category.
be amazing. It's an amazing story.
Sure.
And they started the steeple on the Upper West Side.